old proverb that says revenge is a dish best served cold. And in this week's episode of Iron-Blooded Orphans, Tekkadan delivers their very own variety of vengeance, which does not come across as cold. In fact, it comes across as blazing hot, like the fiery pits of hell. Tekkadan is pissed in this week's episode as they decide to take down Jasley and his entire crew with extreme prejudice, which is not only incredibly satisfying for the viewer, but also lets us know that there is no turning back for Tekkadan after this point. They've cut ties with everyone, except of course for McGillis Farid, who has big plans to reform Gjallarhorn and transform it into his very own justice playground. But is this going to end up being a good thing for Tekkadan, or are they just heading towards disaster? So yeah, this week's episode was pretty damn stellar. It featured a lot of amazing mobile suit action. I believe the highlight, of course, was getting to see the Gundam Barbatos Lupus Rex in action. Actually taking a lot of inspiration from the Rex part of its name, which not only means king, but of course reminds me of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And this brand new Gundam just so happens to have a tail, which is like a big freaking spear, which can just plow into enemies and throw them around, giving the Barbatos Lupus Rex a little more momentum in battle. In fact, I think this weapon was actually adapted from the Hashmal mobile armor, which is, of course, pretty freaking awesome. But I mean, Mikazuki in this episode just wrecks everything in his wake. It's like watching a freaking violent dance. It's awesome. And it's also really depressing because Jasley, as much as I wanted him to be much more of a big threat to Tekkadan, he's a real pussy. He proved yet again that he is just such a freaking boot-looking asshole. Not only does he realize that he's going to lose, not only does he realize that Iakujan is not going to help him out, not only does he realize that McMurdo knows that he's the one who actually took out all of these people in this big massacre, killed Laughter, and set himself up for his own defeat. Jasley gets made a fool in this week's episode, and it might be one of the coolest scenes I've seen from the entire series. There's been a lot of great comeuppance moments in the Gundam series. Hell, one that comes to mind is from the original series, at the very end, where Char Aznable defeats one of his enemies by blasting them point blank in the freaking head with a bazooka. This week's episode is definitely, I think, on par with that one, when suddenly freaking Mikazuki just appears on deck, on Jasley's ship, right in front of him with a Barbatos Lupus Rex. And this is a great scene because Jasley is trying to talk to Orga, and he's basically begging him to not kill him. Let's try to settle this with money. But of course, Orga doesn't want anything to do with this. He's not going to negotiate whatsoever. He just wanted to see him beg for his life. And hilariously enough, he's not impressed with anything he's seeing. And this scene is very important to me because this revenge should feel good. But it's not. It's just going to be empty and hollow at the end. It's just this endless cycle of death and destruction. And that's when Mikazuki gets the full order to just crush him. He brings down that big-ass weapon and just completely annihilates all of these guys. I also really liked Akihiro's reaction to this one as well, where he's kind of relieved in some senses that yes, his enemies have been defeated, but you can also get a sense that maybe he wishes he was the one who could actually pull that off. And not to undercut the other characters, they all got to do some really great stuff in this episode. Akihiro in particular, who is just freaking unstoppable in this one with his giant clamp weapons. He's really great. I especially love that, you know, they really made it clear that, yeah, he's lost a lot of important people in the show. His brother Masahiro, Austin, freaking Laughter. And he's even sort of slightly being, like, you know, motivated by Galen Massa. Even though Galen Massa was an enemy, he reassured him that it doesn't matter, revenge is cool too, just go ahead and go with it. And he's sort of slowly being influenced by that. And again, this is just another one of those, like, storytelling tools to let us know that Tekkadan is going down a very dark path. I mean, they've been spiraling since the beginning of the series, but this is definitely the point of no return, especially because at the end of the episode, after Gjallarhorn is getting ready to have, like, this, like, big reformation plan with McGillis Farid going up and saying basically, yeah, Iok Kujan and Rustal are the ones who set up all this shit, and we're going to take them out. There's about to be this massive civil war which is going to go on, and Tekkadan is going to be trapped right in the middle, and Cordelia Ina Bernstein just realizes that, yeah, this is it. No going back here. She even mentioned something about a fateful day, so we know that something really crazy is probably going to happen at the end of the series, and I have a feeling that it's probably not going to be a happy ending. So, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Iron-Blooded Orphans? Sweet Revenge. That's the name of the game this week. Most of this episode was dominated by action, and frankly, I'm okay with that. There's a lot of great standout action scenes in this episode, which again demonstrates one of the strongest points about Iron-Blooded Orphans action, is that it's very blunt. It's very in your face. There aren't a lot of like beam sabers and beam weapons being used. All of the weapons used by everyone are like these giant clunky pieces of metal that when they slam into another friggin' robot, you really feel how damaging it is. This episode was also disturbing in the sense that Jasley threw absolutely everything at Tekkadan, including more human debris, which means lots of more orphans getting killed and having no problems with it. That's the thing, this series just does not care about freaking out the viewer a little bit. Even the other members of Tekkadan realize, if they got a mobile suit and they got a weapon, it's either us or them. And even though Mikazuki was definitely the star of this week's episode, like I said earlier, there are some characters who get to do some great things this week. I love the fact that Hushmidi is actually like a lot more competent as a mobile suit battler now. The fact that he's using one of the old mobile suits that was used by Turbans and everyone's giving him shit about it, like, you better not mess up that machine. That was a gift from the Turbans. And then you have other characters like Ride still being really awesome, Derma and the frickin' Landman Rhodey, just they all had these really great moments. But it was definitely Barbados Lupus Rex that just stole the show this week. Just how incredibly ruthless it is. How it opened up with this great scene by grabbing another mobile suit, throwing it into another, and then basically impaling both of them on its massive weapon. It's just incredibly satisfying. And the scene where he actually takes out Jasley is probably my favorite for a number of reasons. I love when they actually show you that shot of Mikazuki inside the cockpit, and he's doing that weird thing that Orga always does, where he closes one of his eyes but keeps the other one open. And I like how you have the mirrored shot of Orga and the Barbados Lupus Rex. In that moment, it's weird. It's like Mikazuki, the Gundam, and Orga all become one being for a second. Like, they're all just sort of like in the same mindset, and that scene was great. Especially just that big destruction where he threw down the weapon and it was just boom! It was awesome. That's the only way to describe it. It was just boom! Lots of fucking boom in this week's episode. Lots of great mobile suit action with some fantastic animation, some great mecha design, and just the beginning of what is probably going to be one of the best parts of Iron-Blooded Orphans. I can't wait to see where it's going to go from here. There's just so many cool things that could happen. I can't wait to see what's going to go on with Mecha Gaileo going back up against McGillis Farid, because now he's definitely going to be a part of his very own faction that's going to be going up against Gallarhorn. Just, man, I'm just so excited right here. But this episode right here was very good. It was a very simple episode, but incredibly satisfying, especially if you were just starving for some kick-ass mecha action, which is really great because the second season of IBO has delivered way more action than the first season, and it's all been pretty damn stellar. So, I love this episode. 5 out of 5 from me. Check it out, Gundam fans. If any of you did watch the episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. What did you think about Tekkadan's revenge against Jasley and his goons? Did you have a favorite scene from this episode? A favorite mobile suit? What do you think is going to happen in the last half of the second season of Iron-Blooded Orphans? Do you think they'll be able to wrap it up, or do you think there's actually going to be a third season? Please tell me all your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for everything Gundam related, whether they be Iron-Blooded Orphan reviews or reviews on other classic Gundam anime. Make sure to leave me a comment or two. I want to interact with you guys. And of course, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, stay dandy, baby.